Imagine a red button, no labels, no explanation, just one instruction. Press it, and someone disappears. Not metaphorically, not online, vanished, gone, forever. Would you press it? Most people say no, but history and science tell a more disturbing story. In 1961, Yale University ran an experiment that would haunt psychology forever. Ordinary people, teachers, baristas, accountants, were told to press a button. Each time they did, someone in another room screamed in pain. They hesitated, but most pressed the button anyway. Why? Because a man in a lab coat told them to. This wasn't fiction. It was the infamous Milgram experiment, and its results were chilling. 65% of people obeyed completely, delivering what they believed were deadly shocks. The takeaway? Humans have a mental glitch, a strange, silent override system. When told by authority, we obey, even if someone disappears. The anatomy of obedience. Stanley Milgram's experiment wasn't just a single study, it was replicated dozens of times across different cultures, demographics, and decades. Each iteration revealed the same unsettling truth. Ordinary people become instruments of harm when placed within an authority structure. The participants weren't sociopaths or criminals. They were neighbors, parents, community members who went to work the next day and kissed their children goodnight. What made them flip that psychological switch? Milgram identified several key factors that transform regular humans into button pushers. First, the gradual escalation. Participants didn't start with maximum voltage. They began with small, seemingly harmless shocks and incrementally increased the intensity. This foot-in-the-door technique bypasses our moral alarm systems by making each individual step feel manageable. Second, the physical distance from consequences. When the victim was in another room, compliance rates soared. When participants had to physically hold the victim's hand to the shock plate, obedience dropped dramatically to 30%. Distance, physical, emotional, or conceptual, makes disappearing someone feel abstract, manageable, even justified. Third, the presence of legitimate authority. The experimenter wore a lab coat, spoke calmly, and represented institutional knowledge. When authority figures dress the part and occupy institutional spaces, our evolutionary wiring kicks in. For millennia, following the group leader meant survival. Questioning authority meant exile or death. The modern button factory. You might think, I'd never do that. I'd stand up. I'd walk away. But the real problem is deeper. This glitch isn't just in laboratories. It's in everyday life, in the workplace, on social media, in governments, a psychological switch that makes good people press bad buttons. Have you ever joined in canceling someone online just because everyone else was doing it? Or followed a company rule you knew was wrong because it wasn't your call? That's the button. It's quiet, invisible. It doesn't glow red, but it's there. Every time we trade conscience for compliance, someone disappears. From dignity, from opportunity, from existence. Consider the corporate world, where organizational hierarchies create perfect conditions for moral disengagement.
Employees routinely implement policies they privately oppose because it's company policy or orders from above. The 2008 financial crisis wasn't caused by a handful of villains. It was enabled by thousands of mortgage brokers, bank employees, and financial analysts who pressed their buttons daily, processing fraudulent loans and packaging toxic assets because their bosses told them to. Social media platforms have industrialized the button-pressing process. Every report click, every pile-on retweet, every silent failure to defend someone being mobbed, these are digital buttons that make people disappear from online spaces, professional opportunities, and social connections. The algorithm provides the lab code. The crowd provides the permission. The screen provides the distance. The neuroscience of disappearing others. The reason is rooted in a flaw called diffusion of responsibility. When we think someone else is in charge, we detach. Morality fades. Our brain says, I'm not responsible, I'm just following orders. It's not evil, it's human, but it's dangerous. Modern neuroscience reveals what happens in our brains during these moments of moral abdication. Brain imaging studies show that when people operate under authority structures, activity decreases in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for moral reasoning and personal agency. Simultaneously, activity increases in areas associated with following instructions and conforming to group behavior. This isn't conscious decision-making, it's automatic neurological shifting. Our brains literally restructure their processing when authority is present, moving from individual moral reasoning to collective compliance mode. The scariest part? Most people don't notice this transition happening. In one follow-up experiment, participants were told they could walk away at any time, but they stayed. Some laughed nervously while pressing the button. Others looked away. One even said, "It's probably fake anyway." Their minds rationalized reality to escape guilt. The rationalization machine. These mental gymnastics reveal another crucial aspect of the button-pressing glitch, our extraordinary capacity for self-deception. Psychologists call this motivated reasoning, our ability to construct logical-sounding explanations for morally questionable actions. They probably deserved it. Everyone else is doing it. It's not my job to judge. I was just following orders. It's not that bad. Someone else would do it if I didn't. These phrases aren't random. They're the standard outputs of a mind protecting itself from moral discomfort. The human brain has evolved sophisticated defense mechanisms against guilt and shame. When we participate in making someone disappear, our psychological immune system kicks in, manufacturing justifications faster than our conscious mind can evaluate them. We become unreliable narrators of our own moral choices. The invisible button epidemic. Now imagine this. What if modern life has millions of invisible buttons? What if your scroll, like, or silence makes someone disappear? Not physically, but mentally, socially, economically. Would you still press?
The question isn't, would you push the button? The question is, have you already? At work, in school, in a comment thread. What if the people you ignored, the outcasts you joked about, were quietly disappearing because of you? Consider the teacher who stops calling on the struggling student to avoid slowing down the class. The hiring manager who unconsciously screens out candidates with unfamiliar names. The friend group that gradually excludes someone without explicit discussion. The neighborhood association that implements policies making certain families feel unwelcome. The online community that slowly freezes out dissenting voices. These aren't dramatic moments of choice. They're quiet accumulations of small decisions. Each individual action feels reasonable, defensible, even kind. But the cumulative effect makes people disappear just as surely as Milgram's button. Breaking the button loop. But here's the glitch fix. Awareness breaks the loop. The moment you become conscious of the button, you regain control. You can pause, question, refuse. Psychologists call it individual accountability. It's simple. Ask, if no one else was watching, would I still do this? Suddenly, the lab coat doesn't matter. The crowd disappears. You are the authority. Research on moral courage reveals specific strategies that help people resist the button-pressing urge. First, pre-commitment, deciding in advance what you will and won't do regardless of social pressure. Second, perspective-taking, regularly imagining how your actions affect others, especially those with less power. Third, identity anchoring, connecting your choices to your core values and long-term self-concept rather than immediate social dynamics. The most effective intervention isn't complex moral philosophy, it's simple questions. What would happen if everyone did this? How would I feel if this were done to me? What kind of person do I want to be? These brief pauses create space between impulse and action, allowing moral reasoning to engage before social conformity takes over. Reclaiming human agency. The next time someone says, "It's the rule," ask why. The next time you're told to stay silent, speak. The next time the crowd turns on someone, pause. Refuse to disappear into them. Because maybe the real button isn't about making others vanish. Maybe it's about making ourselves disappear from accountability, empathy, and courage. But it doesn't have to be that way. You were born with a conscience, a glitch-resistant core. Don't trade it for comfort. Don't bury it in obedience. Don't press the button. The human capacity for both cruelty and compassion exists within the same neural architecture. The same brain that can rationalize harm can also recognize dignity, demand justice, and choose courage over comfort. The difference isn't intelligence or morality, it's awareness and practice. Every day presents opportunities to strengthen your resistance to invisible buttons. Notice when you feel pressure to conform. Pause when authority figures make requests that feel wrong. Question systems that seem designed to make certain people disappear. Practice saying no when it matters, even when it's uncomfortable. The button will always be there, waiting to be pressed. But you don't have to be the one pressing it. This isn't the only human glitch you have. There are more. Hidden ones. Dangerous ones. Tap here to discover the one that turns you into someone else without even knowing it.